Hi, this is Mike making my video. It's 5/5/2025 and it's 12:30 a.m. Yeah, basically I'm making this video uh, to talk about, you know, the mind, the aspects of the mind. You know how the world is a reflection of the mind. Uh, after we process everything and it goes through all the channels in our mind, it becomes real as we observe it. Um, it's more or less it's more or less just an hallucination, basically, and and there's other aspects of your mind that almost like a cable box, where you add icons and you know little tiny things or whatever, in the video, and it's like your mind is the same exact way. It can have a memory, an impression, and basically it takes that impression, animates it, and projects it in this world. All things are projected, and more or less, which is to say, everything is fake. Even I'm fake. Your mind is fake. You are fake, and you don't exist either, and nothing exists outside of you. It's like you're a lot bigger than the world. The world is basically a small sliver, and you're a lot bigger than the world. It's where you rise above the world, basically, and you find out that the world isn't worthy of you. You know, it's kind of a hard thing to understand for people that think that everything outside of them is separate from them. But it's not. It's like, those things are at your, disposal. You can do things, and you can, change the way things are, just by observing them. And it's like that's why everything's so perfect. Like the sun and the moon are the same exact size, and when you look at them, and everything is in the perfect order. The world is in the Goldilocks zone, and for life to exist, it's almost impossible, but it does nevertheless. Life exists in every corner of this universe. Even two-dimensional pictures can come to life, and it's just it's what it is. Sometimes after enlightenment, you have an empty feeling, and that's because you've exhausted everything. There's really nothing else to do, and your mind is always looking for something new to do, and a new thing to take on, a new challenge. And after a certain point in time, you just get to the point where there really is nothing more to do in this life. Um, you know, uh, I don't mean this all negative, you know, but this world, this existence that we're in, it's like once you've accomplished everything, that's the goal in life, is to be complete. And sometimes to be complete is almost bordering on being bored, uh, because you've done everything and you've seen everything and you became everything. And it's not, it's not that you're necessarily feeling depressed. It's just the fact is that, uh, you're content, and you're content with things. And the hedonistic treadmill, you go on and you buy things and you do things, and then you get to the point in life where there really isn't anything left to do anymore, and you just eat, drink, and be merry. And it's like, you find little things to occupy you, but you're no longer interested in women or relationships, and you're no longer interested in buying new cars, because all the cars nowadays are junk anyway. And you're no longer interested in working. You're no longer interested in buying certain things. You're no longer interested uh, in doing different things. You know, you don't like to travel. You don't like to go outside. You don't like to socialize. Uh, you cut your friends out. You don't talk to your family. Uh, you isolate yourself, and you become more like a hermit. But you're protecting your mind. Uh, Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Basically, you're taking all those filters, and you're basically taking and filtering all the things that get into your mind. You don't observe certain things anymore. You don't get involved in politics, non-polarity. Uh, you don't have a lot of energy, and that's because you've exhausted everything. And usually, when you come to the point where you're truly trying to accomplish something that has any significant meaning, your mind ramps up because it knows what it is, but your conscious mind doesn't, but your subconscious mind does. And you have all this energy and stuff like that, and you dedicate it towards one possible outcome. And when the wave function gets collapsed, then you experience whatever that miracle is or that epiphany. So that's really all there is to it. There really isn't much more to this life other than that. And what I'm saying is, it's not to say that life is empty, but it's kind of like where you're at. You don't have a lot of energy, and the reason being is you've already done everything for the most part, and you don't have the desire to do the things that you used to have interest in because you've already accomplished those things. So, when you find yourself, and you don't have a lot of interest in playing, let's say, certain video games, or you're not interested in dating people, uh, and you don't have let's say your sex drive gets squashed, and, it's just what it is. It's more or less, your ability to chase after those types of things no longer exists. So, it's like you're empty kind of, but that's not a bad thing. Nothing is everything in many ways, because when you're empty on the inside, that means that you can get things filled. And that's the goal in life, is actually to become the hermit. And once you become the hermit, then that's actually means job well done. You're no longer the lover. You're no longer the warrior. The creator king, or the creator god, the destroyer god. You no longer really do those types of things. And the fool, you don't play the fool anymore because you kind of know what you're doing. And the wise philosopher, you're kind of at that, but then you find out that AI can take over much of that stuff. And then, like I say, you're no longer in higher education. You're not interested in getting caught up with a lot of debt. You don't want to buy new cars. You don't want to buy houses. And, it's basically you do all those things, and things get to be a lot easier. And your struggle seems to be over for the most part. You're always going to have enough time and enough money to accomplish the things you want to accomplish. And, you got the freedom to do it with the time. So time equates to freedom. Money equates to freedom. So, anyway, that's kind of where it's at, though. But once you've had that extreme high, everything else in comparison is boring and depressing. And it's kind of like you can't really expect everything to be euphoria forever. Your mind can't operate, at a real high volume like that. You can't have major highs, and expect to be that way for a long period of time, you'll have straight up burnout. And your mind can only sustain that for maybe 2 weeks at the most. And, I've seen spirits, and I've seen them where they get depressed. And they're listless and stuff like that. And the reason being is they suffer the same things that we do. The same things that you suffer from in this life carries over to your next. And, sometimes you're a hungry ghost, looking for things, desiring things, that you can't do. But then again, in this life is actually your best life now. So you can do anything that a spirit can do for the most part in this life. So anyhow, that's really how that works. And I've seen some miraculous things, some incredible things. But, that's not, something that you're going to experience every day, 24/7. What goes up does eventually come down. And this world and the one above it pass away. So you go from this state to the next estate, but then from that estate back to this state. And they no longer exist as separate states. It's just basically paradise. Where, there's sin at every corner. And how do you define what sin is? You trick the universe or your mind into not really worrying about what's right or wrong. And then when you can do that, when you can change your beliefs, basically, you can do anything. So, like I say, you have to have determination. You have to sacrifice. You have to give up one set of things for another. It might be a spiritual awakening. It might be manifestations like major epiphanies, but, those things do have a price on them. But you consider that, and then you consider that everything's an illusion. It's chasing after the wind. And then you get to that point in life, it's like with much wisdom comes much sorrow. And the more things you understand, the more things you know, and the higher you've been, So then you end up getting burnout, and you end up getting to the point where you feel kind of depressed and empty. But the thing is that's just the way things are. That's just something that comes along with it. There's a trade-off. And you gotta consider, that great knowledge and great wealth has a lot of responsibilities. I had 12 cars or whatever, and I was constantly working with those cars, to kind of keep them maintained and try to put them somewhere that I could store them and stuff, and that fell through. So then I just decided that it's too much, and I decided to simplify my life and have 2 cars. So anyhow, so I got one goal left in life, and that's to work out and get exercise. And once I do that, then things are going to be pretty much done. One last hoopla, and get my exercise done and tone my muscles up. I gotta go back to the gym. That's one thing I definitely have to do, and I will do it. So anyhow, but yeah, the higher you go, the harder you fall. And sometimes, that's not such a bad thing, Being content, is actually being happy ever after. It's like happy being is the same, I guess, is the same as being content. It's not euphoric, but euphoric comes in spurts. And, it's just a major release of suffering. And you might have something that you're really trying to figure out, and then once those things are answered for you, you no longer have those burning desires in your heart, they're answered. And it's a release from suffering. So anyway, that's all I got to say.